case you didn't believe it, they in fact were. All right, so my name is Bianca White. For those of you from UT and LMU, you're well versed with one another and familiar with one another. For those of you at Elon and Duke, I am actually covering for your rep. Well, you have a new rep that's been hired, but they are shutting down their practice, transferring all their cases, and then they will join at the very end, actually the very last day of February. So you'll have a new rep starting in probably March. So we'll be together for the next month or so anyways. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video so you don't have to see my sad little closet that I'm hiding in. Today is I want to show you, I call it Query Like a Boss, and really what it is how to craft an effective query. And I find what happens is we spend so much time talking about the systems that we don't always spend a good deal of time talking about how to effectively craft a good search. So it's a good idea to go ahead and get our feet wet with some of those important tips that'll kind of really carry you through any research assignment. Super important to know how the terms and connectors work to make sure you're using them as effectively as possible. So Boolean or terms and connectors, it all basically means the same. And it's that algebraic way of telling the system how you want to search. Now, if you're feeling so inclined or your Friends aficionado, this link will take you to an excellent little clip from Friends where Joey is trying to explain that he technically, I gotta show you, he technically did not propose to Jennifer Aniston's character, and of course Ross says, well, technically, you can't technically, and it's really just the importance of quotations. So quotations are the first thing that we'll talk about. So in the old days on the legacy dinosaur systems, there was a very kind of strange, almost computer speak that you used. Well, now with the proliferation of Google, right, we all have a basic understanding of how and what is going to be interpreted with various types of computer systems. Same thing with Lexis. And because of that, there is automatic conversion that happens that can take a legal phrase that you're meaning to be a legal phrase and turn it into kind of a combination of words. So the first trick is if you just want a very precise term, you don't want any variations, make sure you throw quotes. And what that's going to do is say, okay, I only want this, and I don't want to find any other alternatives. So for my North Carolina friends, I love these two claims, alienation of affection and criminal conversations. They're two of the most interesting claims in the whole wide world to me, so I use them frequently and often. And these are examples of how you might want to use the quotes to kind of truncate or change the results that you're getting. So these are a couple of oldies or goodies, and or we're not going to kind of go over those, but obviously use them. What I will say about and or is the default on Lexis Plus is always going to be natural language. And what that means is it's going to look for any variation of your terms. So if we say dog bite damages, it's going to find dog, dog bite, dog damages, damages. It's only when you add a connector, add a Boolean connector, that it's going to force the system to interpret that as a terms and connector search. So and or are our most common. The moment you put an and or an or in there, it's going to convert that into a terms and connector search. Okay. The next ones that I want to highlight for you are some root expanders and term variations. Now, fun fact, most of the connectors that you can use on Westlaw are interchangeable on Lexis as well. So even if our connector appears different, if you're just accustomed to Westlaw connectors, you can actually go ahead and use them on Lexis and it will interpret them in the same way. So the asterisk is basically a placeholder. You can put it in the middle of a word if you're looking for stockholder, shareholder, variations thereof. It'll basically fill in the blank and meet the parameters on either side. Similar thing for the question mark, only that's going to be like basically one space. Now, our root expander is the exclamation point, and the root expander means find any variation of this word. So if we say intend, root expander, we're going to find intent, intentional, intend, intending, basically expanding out the back end of that word. And you need this one a lot more than you might believe. Now with Westlaw, the root expander is the asterisk. which we also use here, you can just put that one at the end. And actually, this is the one I use because I'm used to using this little accordion anyways. So you can go ahead and put that at the end and it will function in the same way. Now, the next type of connectors are proximity connectors. And what these mean are space and time, basically. How close in time or space do we want these terms to appear? So slash whatever number allows you to say how close in time you want either term on either side of that number to bring those together. I always kind of default to slash S or slash P. They're kind of the same thing, only slash S means within the same sentence, slash P means within the same paragraph. Those roughly equate to 25 words for slash S or 75 words for slash P. So I actually teach legal research as well at a different law school. And whenever I am explaining how to really craft a good search to my students, what I tell them is let your results be your guide. And that's absolutely true when you're doing a really good terms and connector search within Lexis as well. You're never going to know what's a good search at the beginning, right? So you really have to let the results of that initial search guide how you're going to truncate, tweak, and switch that search to make it a little more meaningful. Now, this next one is kind of a play on the proximity connector for numbers, and it is pre/slash whatever number. And you might think you're never going to need that one until you need it. And a really good example is when you want motion within 3 words of dismiss, but you definitely want motion to appear first. Or, so my best friend's name is Mary Wagner. If I were searching for Mary Wagner, and I just said Mary/3 of Wagner, it would give me Mary Wagner, Wagner Mary, anything like that. And they're pretty common names. But if I say Mary pre/3 Wagner, it's going to find only where Mary is before Wagner. And because it's /3, that will account for any middle initials that are included as well. Now, this next one is actually my favorite connector, and that is the and not. And what this and not connector does is it says, okay, I see my results, but I want to remove something. And again, this is one of those you're never going to know you need until you need it. So in this example, I like to use, in my previous life, I was a labor and employment attorney. And the bouncing burden for proving a prima facie case for a discrimination case is the same as that bouncing burden language that is used in workers' compensation cases. So when I was searching for, let's say, race discrimination, burden shifting, I would get tons of workers' comp cases. So what I could do is say, and not workers' compensation. And what that will do is pull out those worker compensation results. One more that I didn't put on here, but I should have is, maybe I did. No, I didn't. It's the at least connector. So if you say at least 15 workers' comp, that will find results that mention workers' comp at least 15 times. That way, you only are going to kind of narrow down to robust results rather than finding any resource that mentions workers' comp anywhere. So the idea being that you will likely find more robust discussion, more meaningful results. All right, so this is going to be a little strange. Bear with me. And this is a super simplistic search, but I kind of want to use it to help guide you in how these terms and connectors work. And there's a proximity what is it with algebra? Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Orders of operation. That's it. There is a similar orders of operation with Lexis. And this is going to demonstrate how that functions. So we're going to build a sandwich together. So in order to have a sandwich, I want bread. I don't really care if my bread is whole wheat or white. So I'm going to add that or connector to say whole wheat or white. And then in order, sorry, I have a child with me, go away. We're going to add these parentheses around them to say, okay, I want you to look at this first. So that forces the system to run this query first, whole wheat or white. And I want either one of those to be within 5 of bread. All right. So I also want peanut butter on my sandwich. So I'm going to add and to make sure I have both the bread and the peanut butter. And I don't care if it's creamy or crunchy, but I want it to be within 5 peanut butter. And I also want jelly or jam. So I'm going to say jelly or jam, and I want the system to read those as one unit. So again, putting those parentheses around them. And I'm going to make sure I have all three of these components. Now, I don't care if it's strawberry or grape or raspberry, but I want it to be within 5 of jelly or 5 of jam. All right. I don't like bananas. It's weird to me that anybody would put a banana on this type of sandwich. So I'm going to say, and not bananas, to make sure I remove all of the bananas. Does that make sense? It's a little silly, but it kind of drives the point home, I think. All right, hold on one second. Let me get us back to my screen and let's go ahead and run a sample. Before we start running a sample search, I want to come over here and highlight this advanced search button for you. And the reason I want to highlight this advanced search button is because this is going to take you to the advanced screen. And this advanced screen is going to give you a link to all of the available terms and connectors or connectors and commands and how you can use those. You can go and take a look at all of them, the search connectors. You can look at specific segments, which I want to highlight in just a second. You can also come over here and look at that at least command that I was bragging about as just wonderful. Hold on, this Zoom screen's getting in my way, so I can't get rid of this. Sorry. Move the Zoom screen now. Back up here. All right. Now, I'm also going to talk about segments a little bit when we dive into our actual search. I know which segments I want, so I don't actually come here to use my segment searching. But when you're new to segment searching, you may want to come here, select search everything, select your content type. So if we're looking in cases, if we come to this screen, it's going to give us the available segments within cases. If you're unsure about which one of these segments are speaking about, you can come over here and open up this guy, which is our PDF that's going to give you kind of a breakdown of where it's pulling all of this from the actual cases within Lexis. So my favorite segment to look at within cases is headnote or overview. The headnotes, remember, are those points of law from the case. Those are the things that the court ruled upon. So if I'm searching cases and I don't want to look at every mention of dog bite, I only want to look where dog bite is mentioned in the headnotes, in the points of law of the case, I could go ahead and enter my terms. And if you look up here at the top, you'll see headnote, dog bite, and then you can go ahead and run the search. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We could have also, once you're familiar with those headnotes, you can just go ahead and start searching here. And I could have done the exact same thing from here, and it would run the exact same search. Okay. So I like a good divorce hypo. So let's go ahead and consider that we are searching for the idea of divorcing our spouse on grounds of adultery, in which case I'm going to narrow down to Tennessee because I sit here in Tennessee, in my little closet in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I'm going to say divorce. And I'm going to say I've been searching divorce a little bit, and I now know that sometimes it's also called marital dissolution. So I'm going to say or marital dissolution. And I really want this to be read as a single term. So I want the system to find either one of these, and I want them to look at that first. That's my main concept. Now, within this, I want this term to be within the same paragraph as adultery or affair. I'm going to do it this way. Now, I could have also done my root expander here and said adulterer, adultery, any variation thereof, but I'll leave it like this for now. So I'm going to go ahead and run this search. And again, I would let my results be my guide. And because I have entered those terms and connectors, or those connectors, it has turned this search into a terms and connector search. If you're ever unsure about how the system is reading your search, if you click these little 3 dots here and you read this, it says run search as a natural language. That's allowing you to say, never mind, I see that you interpreted this as a terms and connectors, but that's not what I wanted you to do. Will you please now go run it in the opposite way? So this kind of gives you a little hint. This little guy is called our search tree map. And the search tree map is really handy because it allows you to see what the system did with that search that you've entered. Where did the results get kind of skewed? And this is really helpful when you find yourself with 0 results, or if you find that you have an unnecessarily small or an unpredictably small number of results. That oftentimes is the result of a typo. And this is a really quick way to kind of see now what term was it that made this so small. So just kind of remember that. Now we have some decent results here, but it's 1100 and that's a little too much for me. So what I want to do is come over here and use some of these additional tools. I'm going to highlight the new things. The very first new thing I want to highlight, which it sounds a little silly that it didn't exist before, but it didn't, and that is case type. So there used to be no way to differentiate between civil and criminal cases, but you can now by coming over here and using this case type, which is nice. All right. The next thing we're going to use is our search within results. Another new addition to the system is the ability to say, I want to include some additional terms or even exclude some terms. So if there are some terms based on your reading of these results that you really want to pull out and pull all those results out that mention, I don't know what, condonation, you can go ahead and enter those and it will pull them out. Now, here's like a pro tip, which is also pretty neat. Now you can go ahead and enter your search terms to focus this result, right? We can add additional terms to look even more precisely, even more narrowly. But now what we have the ability to do is also segment search within this search within results. So what I'm going to do is come down here. Y'all remember me saying, I sure love a head notes segment. I'm going to select that head notes segment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say adultery within the same sentence as ground, because I'm really looking for this idea. And I'm going to add an asterisk at the end because I want to find ground or grounds, ground for divorce, grounds for divorce. And I'm now going to narrow this result only to cases that mention adultery within the same sentence as grounds for divorce in the head note, in the point of law of the case. So now I'm looking, instead of 1100 results, 49 results, where the court has actually ruled on this single concept, okay? Now, when I start looking at my results list, I have this, actually, let me show you one more thing too. Well, I'll show you the quick view. So this is new as well. This little quick view here will allow you to kind of open up and get a quick view of those big hits of my search before I decide whether I want to open it up. This is an efficiency tool before you dive into the results and move away from your results list. It's also a cost-effective tool. So if you're at a firm that doesn't have a super robust contract and you're not able to use your academic ID because the firm doesn't want you to, remember, you do have full access with your academic IDs all summer long. But if your firm wants to bill or whatever it is that they want you to use the firm ID for, when you access content outside of your plan, it costs money. So having that quick view is always going to be free. So that won't incur a charge before you decide whether you want to actually dive in to the underlying source and incur that charge. Now, another new enhancement, which is pretty neat, is this motion type. So let's say we are actually working on a motion to dismiss, and we want to look at similar cases that have come down based upon motions to dismiss. We come over here and narrow down to motions to dismiss, and that way we're getting results, which brings us down to 6, so an even smaller sampling size. This filter is also available in our briefs, pleadings, and motions. So if you're trying to find sample templates to mock up your own motion to dismiss, you'd go here to briefs, pleadings, and motions. And again, you could use those same filters that we just looked at. Let's go ahead and open up the case. Okay. And we have, of course, the summary giving us that nice little overview. We have our head notes. And this is another new enhancement that was recently released within Lexis. And this is this recommended source. So within these head notes, you now have recommendations to secondary source, some analytical content. So if you find a good head note on point, and you want to read a little bit more about it, you want this to lead you to some additional analysis, you can click on this and it will take you to those great secondary sources. Now, another thing that's super handy within the document is the ability to select which terms you want to focus on. So you can come and select them. But sometimes you'll have a really big document that just has a ton of terms. And when that happens, you can use the system to search further, search within results. And what this is going to allow you to do, it's kind of like a control F, but like a control F on steroids. So we could say adultery within the same sentence as ground. And so we could search this way, but it's allowing us to use that same kind of Boolean connector to search within the document, which is going to be more efficient when you have a document that mentions your term, 745 times. It can really kind of focus in on that carefully crafted language that you're looking for. There are some additional enhancements that I was going to go over, but I don't think we really have time. So let me just kind of highlight a few of them for you. The brief analysis tool has added a quote check feature with it. So if you have opposing counsel's brief, or if you're just trying to submit your own document, it doesn't have to be a brief. It can be a memo, or it can just be a Word document that has citations and legal analysis. Anything like that, you can upload this into the system and it will run all those cross comparisons, make all those recommendations, and it will also do that quote check for you. It also has some additional filters for various 10 different practice areas. And there's also this in practical guidance, there's this really nice graphic for the various stages of litigation at the federal level, and allows you to kind of segue in with each of those. If you're looking to stay up to date in all things legal news, Lexis Plus has this great kind of this hub that has been instituted. It's a great way to kind of stay on top of all late breaking legal topics. And you can also do some research within different firms, within different courts here as well. All righty. Well, let me go ahead and put the link one more time. So if you were not able to sign in, please go ahead and use that link that I have put in the chat. Are there any questions from anybody about anything at all? I know it was a lot in a short period of time. Well, thank you for joining us. We will send a follow-up email with your points and announce the raffle winners. It'll be 10% from each school. There will also be a tip coming up, I think, in the next week. So kind of pay attention to that email, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good one.